Martha, can you tell us a little bit about how you formed this duo with your sister? Tell us what this Aznavoorian duo is all about and how it started.
A few years ago, I think it was actually during COVID, we decided to finally put our project, our idea of making an album together. That's one that kind of materialized, at least the thought materialized into something. And we've performed together as young children, and we've throughout our lives, but we decided to solidify something, and that was the making of the album Gems from Armenia.
Ani, over to you. Is what Marta said, is that all right? Did you approach Marta? Did she approach you? Or was it that you were each had the same idea at the same time?
Well, she is right. And we played together as kids all the time. She used to be the boss and yell at me, Ani, you're not listening to me. And then I think in a way that kind of shaped me as a chamber musician. And now I feel like I'm a very good listener. Thanks, Marta. But as far as the album goes, in a way, it was encouraged by Jim Ginsberg of Sadie Records. We had both recorded for Jim in other projects for Sadie Records, and he wanted us to do something together and something that was very meaningful to us. And so an Armenian album was all of our collaborative efforts combined. So that sort of was the impetus to make it happen.
Ani, and tell us about this new album. So is that what was the original idea of the duo, was we're going to make an album? Tell us what this album's about and what makes it so special.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've always sort of had a duo. We played a lot as kids, and then, like Marta said, life happened and we went our separate ways. But it's always sort of been there, but never solidified in this way. We grew up in a very traditional Armenian family. Our mom cooked delicious Armenian food. We went to Armenian events in the Chicago area. We felt very culturally Armenian. But one thing that was missing from our lives is that we had never been to the country of Armenia, the motherland. So in 2017, we got asked to make our debut recital in Yerevan, the capital, in Khachaturian Hall. And so it was very exciting for us because we really felt that was missing from our lives. And so it felt like a big deal to us. And we really made the most of that performance and of that trip to Armenia. And we came back feeling just so heartwarmed by the people there and the warmth they showed us, the open arms, the food they fed us, everything. They really welcomed us. And we left with such good feelings. We really wanted to sort of make permanent something from that trip, and a CD of Armenian music really felt like the way we could best do that. So we decided to sort of become more serious about our duo at that point and put it on record, put it on CD, and that's what we did. COVID gave us the time to really organize our thoughts about what we wanted to include on the disc, and Jim Ginsberg made it all happen for us. He really, really was helpful in guiding us to make the most of it.
Okay, Marta, and so tell us about the success so far of the duo. What are your upcoming projects? What is exciting in the world of the Aznavoorian duo?
Well, we did just get back from a lovely mini residency for Seattle Chamber Music Society. We love to give master classes and we love to teach. So that was part of that mini residency. And we encourage presenters to invite us to do such things when they invite us to not only give a concert, we'd like to get in touch with some of the students in the area and universities and schools as well. That's other things that we like to do as musicians. We are in a project of a new CD with Sadie, and that I might keep quiet for now, but we do have another project along the way. This past disc was more than just sort of a debut announcement album of the duo. It was also, there were a lot of things politically going on with immigrants and migration, and it made us sort of think inward what it meant to be an immigrant born of our American heritage. We were born here. We were not from here. We were not from Armenia originally. We were not born there. And recording this disc was very cathartic for us. What does it mean to be an immigrant? You know, they're met with various challenges. First generation are met with challenges to how to assimilate to a new country, how to acclimate to a new country. Ani and I are third, fourth generations, and we're faced with a different challenge. And that challenge is how to preserve our culture, how to transfer it to the next generation, how to transfer our heritage and the authenticity of who we are to our own children. And documenting these folk songs and exploring Armenian musical tradition was our way of doing just that. So it was a nice platform to move ahead as a duo and perform and travel and spread our message of who we are and what the Armenian culture is.
Wow. So Ani, that's a good segue to come to our political part of this interview. So tell us a little bit about that Armenian heritage that you're talking about, more than what it looks like. What does it mean to you? I understand from the diaspora, the Armenian diaspora all over the world, that it's means when you say you're Armenian that you really, it's something that's an identity that's very, very strong, and that identity comes from the genocide perpetrated by the Ottomans. When I think about that, and you tell me about your trip to Yerevan, I think about Charles Aznavour traveling there some years before and meeting the head of the Armenian church and asking, well, why did God let this happen if there is a God? So tell us, what does this mean to you personally? As Marta was saying, now you're passing down something that you've inherited. What does this mean to you to be Armenian?
Well, yes, I think you sort of answered your own question. The more an identity struggles, like the Jews or the Armenians, the tighter you come together in the aftermath of it. And I think you're right. Armenians do have this really tight-knit community. Anywhere you go throughout the world, there are these pockets of Armenians that really stick together. I'm definitely surrounded by it here in California. There's a big group here. I know certainly in Boston, Chicago, Detroit, loads of Armenians, and throughout the world as well. And like the Greeks also, they're also tight knit, and they have reason to be. They've suffered, and so they're out of that comes this longing to preserve and to fight back. In that way, we will survive. We become a survivor, and we will last. You can't bring us down. That type of mentality. So we feel very fortunate to have grown up culturally very strongly Armenian. We know some of the most wonderful people we know are our Armenian friends from Chicago, and just all warm memories. And my favorite, when I think about, we didn't go to church that often because it was far from our home, but we'd go on Christmas and Easter. And the things I remember the most about church are the smell of the incense and the music, because the music is for the masses is by Komitas, who is a large part of our CD. He's sort of known as the grandfather of Armenian music. And so that's been in my blood since I can remember, that sound, his sound, Komitas. And it just sort of envelopes everything I know about the Armenians. It's just this Armenian flavor that he brought to the music. And it's very soulful. It's sometimes tragically sad, but in such a painfully beautiful way. It's part of us, and that's why we wanted to record it.
Marta, over to you. Is that to you what it means to be an Armenian musician, to have suffered and survived the incense of the church and this
Yes,
sad music?
church. Well, interestingly enough, the genocide is almost a starting point of memory and stories for the Armenian people. At least I don't really unfortunately, know enough what happened before 1915. I mean, that seemed to be sort of a starting point of what it meant to be Armenian. So I think it's inevitably shaped who we are moving forward. And you'll find there are Armenians all around the world, but they all undeniably have a pull or a sense of wanting to be connected somehow to the homeland of Armenia. And to stay Armenian, I think we have to rely on language, food, stories, and actually music. It's a big part of the culture.
Okay. And so, Ani, happy thoughts moving forward. So
yes, happy.
When you think about the next steps and you think about the performances you're going to do, clearly a big part of the performances you do are for an Armenian public. So tell us about, a wonderful experience you've had and what you'd like to do then, what you want to recreate then in the future.
Well, I think as Marta and I move forward as a duo, I think we'll always include some Armenian music. It's just so personal. There's nothing we can offer that's more personal than that, and the audiences seem to feel that. We've played programs with just a couple Armenian pieces, and then the rest standard works, and that always goes over well. But people always comment, "Oh, I just love the Armenian pieces." No matter what other amazing works we play, those always stand out in some way. So I think we will always include that. But we've got lots of projects in mind. Some things concretely moving forward, other things just ideas, and we'll see what materializes. But I think this idea of immigration is definitely in our future. Doesn't have to be Armenian. I mean, when you think to the great musicians of the past and of the present, and where they came from and why they came to America and the routes they took and their families took, it's very fascinating. And I love learning these stories. Even like recently, Marta and I have been playing these Piatigorsky variations. Gregor Piatigorsky was one of my great cello heroes. But just in learning his story and how he left the Soviet Union, ran away from the Soviet Union, literally ran away with his cello over his head, being shot at. It's just fascinating to learn these different stories of these heroes that have ended up in the United States. So I think that's going to be a big part of our musical future.
Marta, to you, you're the big sister. Is that what's happening?
It's fun to be called the big sister, but it's not so great as we move along. Well, to answer the first part of your question, there was at one point in the recording where we were recording the Aratunian impromptu, and we had our run through. And then as we started to work through the piece again, we were starting to get rather technical about it. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should take time here. Perhaps maybe this isn't working. Let's do this. And then Ani turns to me. She's like, we've been playing this since we were 3 years old. I think we just need to stop thinking about it and play it the way we've always played it. And that was essentially what we did. And that's the best way that happened to work for that particular piece. So that was rather fun to have that recordings aren't always that familiar. You don't always have that luxury to record something that's very familiar to you with someone who's very familiar to you. We are very fortunate in the sense that we get to explore our musicianship as artists and as sisters. It's a really unique thing. And it was one that I really have, in my later ages, I'm appreciating now more than I ever did, even when we were younger. And I'm a lot nicer to her now. Now she's in charge. Now she bosses me around. so.
Okay. Thank you so much, Annie and Marta Aznavoorian.
Thank you, Simeon.
Thank you so much.